Okay. Good afternoon. Happy Sunday, everybody. We are happy and excited to be going live with our honored and distinguished guest today. His name is Anastasios Vrenios, and he's a wonderful, wonderful tenor who had a great and incredible career and is based in the DC area. So, just to start off, this is the DictionBuddy one-on-one series. This is our second episode, and we're so glad to be welcoming you today to this incredible opportunity and this discussion. So, my name is Kofi Hayford, as you may well know, and I'm joined by our other co-founder of DictionBuddy, Victoria Koreneva. Vita, if you want to say hi and introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you so much, Pookie. Today is a special day, and for me especially, because for the time that I lived in DC, I studied with Tasso myself, and it's a great pleasure to make today happen and hear what Tasso has to share with us. Welcome, Tasso. We are ecstatic to have you here today.
Thank you, Kofi and Vita, for inviting me here today. I'm very pleased to be able to pass on some important things that I want to say and I want to share with you. I especially want to get to the singers who may be watching. And so I've written these things down so I won't forget them. And if you don't mind, I will try to read what I think is important to me to pass on to you.
Please do.
Okay?
Please go ahead. Yeah, we're looking forward to hearing it.
Okay, thank you. Here goes. You singers out there, I know what a difficult time this is for all of you. This is a time and opportunity for all of you to become stronger and to grow from this experience. First of all, keep working to perfect your vocal technique. Take some lessons online from your teachers or mentors or coaches, whichever you need the most. Second, please keep improving your musicianship. When you do this, it allows you to more clearly bring the meaning of what you are singing alive. This beautiful music of these great composers that we are given the privilege to bring to the world and to our audiences, we must honor this privilege that we've been given and not take it for granted. Okay? The next thing I want to say, something that I feel is the most important thing of all. We must find a balance in the three aspects that comprise who we are. They are our body, our mind, and our spirit. In the world that we live in today, it's easier to concentrate on the first two, that is the body and the mind. However, in my mind, the most important is the spirit. It is the most important aspect that we must embrace. Through various methods, maybe prayer, meditation, or other means that we may have to do this. It is the most important element of all, our spirit. We live in a three-dimensional world. However, the spirit lives in another dimension. Therefore, it is more difficult to assess. I ask for you today to bring this to your attention. I've spent my whole life learning this lesson. I'm here today to emphasize this reality and bring it to your attention and ask that you make this a priority in your lives. This is especially vital in the difficult times that we live in today. Please do this for yourselves today. Be in touch with that spirit. I've spent almost 80 years finding out the reality of this, and I want to pass it on. So I want to thank you again, Kofi and Vita, for letting me speak to you today. And I want to send my peace and love to all of you out there.
Thank
That's
you,
a wonderful
Pastor.
message. Thank you.
I want to jump in, and I really, because some people know of you, have heard of you, but if you could please just give us your background, where you're coming from, what is your musical path, anything you'd like to share with us.
What in particular do you want to know?
You talk, go ahead.
Well, when did you first get into singing? I think that's a good place to start. Like, how did the journey begin?
Okay. Well, first I was a clarinetist, and I played the clarinet from second grade on. And in high school, my senior year, my girlfriend asked me to join her with the choir. And so I went into the choir the first day, and I loved singing with everybody, But the choir director, the lady, motioned me to come up, and she said, "We're very happy to have you here." I was known as Ernie by then, because that's another story. I'll get to that another time.
Okay.
So she said, "We're happy to have you here, Ernie, but can I ask a favor, please? Can you keep your voice down because I can't hear anyone else?" And I went, "Oh, God." And she said, "You have a remarkable voice. You should be taking voice lessons." Now, this was my senior year in high school, and I was going to go to College of the Pacific in Wisconsin the following fall. And so that summer, they had a music camp. And so, I thought about what she said. So I, went to this music camp to prepare myself to go to College of the Pacific in the fall. And that's where I met Elizabeth. We were both 17. And anyhow, I brought my clarinet with me. But because of what she said, I thought, let me audition for the choir. So, and I had heard some opera, and so I thought, let me learn something. And so I learned the prologue from Pagliacci, the baritone aria in Italian. So I went in for the audition, and there were three people in the audition. One was a man, a tenor, and then two ladies. And so I said, "Well, I'm going to sing the prologue from Pagliacci for you." And they just kind of looked at one another like, "What?" So I proceeded to sing it. Okay. I put it. They had a very good accompanist there, and he was able to play it.
Yeah, that's a very tricky piece. Yeah.
I'm singing, and they're giving me this incredible look, and then I thought, gee, I hope this isn't too awful, and I finished, and the man, the tenor, got up and he came up to me and he said, we're going to be doing the opera Devil and Daniel Webster. I'm going to be playing the devil, which is the tenor role, and we want you to do the lead of the baritone, Daniel Webster. And I went, "Oh, okay."
Wow.
So that's the first thing I did. And
interesting. You were a baritone, and then you switched to tenor.
Well, even as a tenor, I had a very strong middle voice. I always had that. And so, but when I started working technically, I realized that I really belonged up higher in the tenor. So that's what I developed, and I heard the first person that blew my mind was Fritz Wunderlich. I said, I think I'm going to sound like that. So I tried to model my voice after Wunderlich, believe it or not. So I developed this kind of very high lyric sound. But it's interesting to see how many opportunities we have to use our voice in many different ways. And it takes time for all of us to decide what direction we need to go. This is where the teacher is important, but the most important teacher you have is you. You have to live with your voice long enough so you know exactly what you are and what is your forte, and only you can do that. So you become your own teacher in time if you do this correctly.
Tasso, but you also had teachers in your time that are amazing, or they were amazing. Would you please speak about them?
Well, the first teacher, Elizabeth and I shared her. Her name was Elizabeth Speltz, and she was this tall, redheaded lady who had a very high, Germanic kind of soprano. Did all these high pianissimi and all, and so she was a good teacher, and we were two of her prize students. And interestingly enough, we sang all kinds of things in those days, which people wouldn't believe. I'm not sure that music schools do that anymore, but I mean, literally in our senior year that we were there, Elizabeth and I sang Mass Ball in Ballerin Master.
Wow. In college?
In college, right there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's kind of, and she and I would get up and do the butterfly duet together and things of that kind, which, people go, what? You did that in your undergraduate school? So it was an amazing experience. Anyhow, when we graduated, Elizabeth went on to Northwestern to get her master's. And I got a scholarship to go to Indiana University. So she went to Chicago and I went to Bloomington, Indiana.
Now, just for clarity, Elizabeth, that's your wife, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, just for those who don't know, so they've been together a little while.
As I said, in that music camp that the summer before we went to college is when I met her. We immediately became close friends, and we would go out together all the time and eat. But she was just a friend, and it was interesting. It took several years before suddenly the whole tide changed and there were sparks. And at that point, by our senior year, when we did the Mass Ball, I said to her, we need to get together. And she said, well, I'm going off to Northwestern and you're going to Indiana. So, when she said that, I thought, I might lose her. And so at that point, I think I asked her to marry me.
That's wonderful. Elizabeth is a phenomenal soprano herself.
She's a
wonderful stage director, and I worked with her as well. And I must say, an amazing person and teacher and coach.
Oh, she certainly is. Yeah.
Tasso, you also mentioned to me, and you actually brought up this several times, that voice is a privilege and responsibility. Who told you this?
Well, I learned it along the way, but probably the main influence for making me think in that direction was Todd Duncan. I started studying with Todd and Mr. Duncan, and he was a tremendous philosopher, and spoke in that way about, for us to honor what we do and not to be conceited singers who people should look up to and admire, but we should try very hard to honor the fact that we've been given that privilege to sing and be able to pass on. He would say things like, we educate when we sing, we inspire, and occasionally we wake everyone up to the importance of life through our music. That's the way he would talk, and so he was a great influence for me.
That's why now you talk about the spirit and the importance of it.
It's to my mind by far the most important thing we have. The problem that we have today in the world is that we concentrate on our body and our minds. We live in a three-dimensional world, and the spirit isn't there. It's in another dimension. So if you're going to get in touch with that, you need to find means to do that. And when you're so busy in your life, thinking about all the everyday things that you have, your jobs and your responsibility, you forget this.
Yeah.
And what I find is I think we go too fast as a result. We're thinking and moving fast, and we need to slow down. In fact, we need to learn how to stop and be quiet. And that's almost the most single difficult thing for us to do today, is to be quiet. We're surrounded by noise. Everything is noisy.
That's right.
And we need to turn that noise off. And the only way you can do that is to go to another place. And to my mind, that is your spirit. That allows you to, you can pray to help you find that. You can meditate, whatever means you need to get in touch with that part of you. Because to me, that is the key to finding a balance in your life. And I think singers and actors are not good at this because they're creating all the time, and they're not practical as a result. They don't think in a practical way, you see. And so it's important that they slow down and think about things of this nature, because it's not here. It's not in the world around us. We have to seek it, and the only way you can do that is to get in touch with what we call the spirit. As I said, you can use prayer, meditation, whatever you need to help you do this. But especially slow down.
Yeah. Actually,
everybody is too anxious to get there yesterday, and that's not the answer,
and where is there anyway, right?
In my case, you see, everything was thrust on me at an early age, and it was too fast. I at 20.
Do you mean fame? Do you mean fame? What exactly are you?
Yeah, I was just recognized too quickly. Do you know what I mean? And I don't think that's right. I think we need to spend our lives learning to deserve these careers.
Would you speak about that part of your life, Tasso, please? How were you recognized, and how did you get your spotlight?
Well, I'm not a very practical person because I'm a Greek boy, and Greek boys are spoiled. It's very much like in the Jewish families, the son can do no wrong. Okay, and I had an older sister, and she doted on me as well. And so I was spoiled by you women. I was a cute little guy with a nice voice, and all that kind of thing. And women would do for me. And unfortunately, that made me very unaware of how to deal with things on a practical basis. They were being done for me. And then I got all this attention quickly with the voice. I won these competitions, and that's not the way it really should be working, because you're not old enough, in your early 20s to know how to equate this, and the voice also needs time to grow, and there I was being thrust on a stage with Joan Sutherland, in my mid-20s, and I was supposed to already know what I'm doing. Now, you take a spoiled guy like me who has all this attention, and he's up there on the stage singing with Joan, and I'm realizing that my voice is changing almost daily, and I don't know what to do about it because I'm a professional now, so I didn't have the ability to, at the time, I got hired by major management at Columbia Artists almost immediately, I made my debut in Spoleto, Italy, with Giancarlo Menotti. He was my stage director, and I did Don Ottavio in Don Giovanni, um, and the problem was the man wasn't ready. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And that's why I, over the years, then have learned the lessons that I tried to pass on to you earlier today about the body, the mind, and the spirit. It took most of my life to learn how to acquire that knowledge, you see. And yet it's the most vital thing we can do for ourselves. If we don't do that, the voice won't work, no matter what you do. If you don't find that balance, the voice won't work. But if you find that balance and you keep acquiring that balance, you see, the voice will come along for the ride.
Thank you, Tasso.
And many singers never learn that lesson, you see, and they suffer for it. It goes back, in other words, to becoming a whole person.
Kofi, you had a question, I know, before I jump.
Yeah, well, actually, I want to jump in and just let you know that there are a few people that want to say a big hello to you, Tasso.
Oh,
So just going back, there's Jenny McGinnis.
oh my God.
She says a big hello.
Oh, my
Kevin,
yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, I adore Jenny. I miss her. I haven't seen her in a long time. Hi,
Yeah.
Jenny.
There's also Kevin Kutamaj says hello.
Oh my goodness. That is just amazing.
Yeah.
I'm missing your voice suddenly.
Oh, there is a wonderful soprano. Her name is Joanna. She's Greek. So I don't know if you can see the screen, but I just put her comment there. She wrote it in Greek.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, yeah, that's a greeting. She's greeting me. Yeah, how wonderful. I don't know her.
Yeah, she saw that you were a Greek tenor. I think she wanted to pay respect. So you have a fan club.
Good luck to her.
And Jenny just responded that she misses you too. She says she hopes you can catch up.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, I do. Yeah. We need to have coffee together, whatever. Yeah.
Tasso, I actually want to ask you. So how do you think nowadays students or young singers can find that balance? Do they need to have a mentor? What is the best way besides those things that you already mentioned, meditation?
Yeah. Hold on a second. I have this message I noticed here from the daughter of my sister,
Okay.
Andrea Saras Patakis, and I'll read it to you. Love you, Theo Tasso. Theo means uncle. So proud of you and happy 80th birthday this week. So I thought that was very sweet. Thank you, Andrea. Love you. And it has a picture of her family there. You can't see any of this, right?
No, I can see that. I put it up so you could see it.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're a beautiful family. Yeah. Anyhow, back to say that again. What you asked me?
I was just asking for your advice. In addition to things that you mentioned, what else young singers can do to find that balance, to get in touch with the internal self and be better singers?
Well,
do they need a mentor? Do they need to look up to their voice teacher for that? Or what is the best way?
Of course. I mean, you need a teacher and you need a very good coach. I think it's important that you also be in touch with some kind of a stage director, because I find that even in the music schools, there isn't enough emphasis made on directing the singer on stage. And I find that a lot of the young singers, they get up there and they just kind of wave their hands and think that they're in character, and that's not good enough, So you need to be in touch with some really good directors. Find out who they are, and and as far as coaches go, you need to get good coaches who will teach you the languages properly. Because again, I hear a lot of young singers and they don't handle the languages well when they sing, because they haven't been trained with the right, vocal coaches,
right,
who know these languages and speak them. Find a coach who speaks that language to coach with. the teacher is extremely important. But find a teacher that works more with you and not just your voice.
Mm-hmm.
Who has the has the ability to explain what's important in life, and not just spend time on developing your voice, and that's what makes you a success.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Tasso.
Yeah.
So actually, Tasso, you have a couple of other questions here for you. So I'll start with one. Give me one moment here. What would you say was your first major breakthrough as a singer? Could you tell us that story?
Well, when you say major, I don't know if you mean professional.
Let's go with professional. Let's go with professional.
Well, I was an apprentice at Santa Fe. Elizabeth and I were both apprentices, and this is from Heather. Now, do you all know Heather Shreves?
Yes, we do.
Yeah,
That was wonderful.
Wonderful,
Beautiful soprano.
Dear Counsel, you are a fabulous mentor, teacher, and friend. Thank you, Heather. Love you. As I said, Elizabeth and I were apprentices in Santa Fe, and one night we had what they called apprentice night, where all the apprentices sang, and I did a scene with Elizabeth from Manon, and it included the Manon, his aria, which is the dream, le rêve, and in the audience was George Shirley. He was one of the big singers that summer. He was singing the Duke in Rigoletto, and he came running up to me after I had sung the scene, and he said, "You remind me of a young Di Stefano." And I went, "Oh, thank you." And when we finished the apprentice season, the coach that I was coaching with said, "They're going to do an opera in Washington D.C. this fall. And there are 2 tenor parts, and you would be perfect for one of them. You should go and audition for it." And I said, "But I'm getting my master's at Indiana." And he said, "Well, then get away for a couple of weeks, Tell them you have an opportunity, but first you got to get the role, so you need to go and audition." And so I went back to my teacher at that time was Margaret Harshaw, and she said, "Definitely." She said, "Call, whoever the contact is that you've been given." And there's the hi, Alexandra. Yeah, I love you. Good to see you. So I flew to Washington D.C. I went over and auditioned for a man named Paul Calloway. At that time, they didn't have the Kennedy Center, and they would do the operas, Washington operas, in another hall, and he was the main conductor, Paul Calloway. So I went to him and auditioned for him, and I did the Ottavio aria, from Giovanni, and I sang Che gelida manina, and he said, "You're hired," and I went, "Okay, I'm going to school still." And he said, "Well, that's okay. It'll take a couple of weeks. You can leave school for a couple of weeks." So that was the beginning, because from that experience, I made the contact with Giancarlo Menotti, Columbia Management. I went and did the opera, and got great reviews. And so the next thing I know, I have these agents from Columbia coming up to me and saying, "We're very interested in you." And I'm going, "Okay." This is what was happening, you see.
Were you 21, 22?
But do you see how wrong this is? Because, if you're mature enough and you've advanced enough in the ways that I was saying earlier, that balance, your body, your mind, and your spirit. I didn't have those things. I was a young kid who'd been spoiled in many ways, and this kept going. Now, how in the world then can you grow? When you've already been told that you're there, and inside you go, no, I'm not. So it almost seemed like a dream to me that it wasn't real. It was like a bubble, and it was going to burst one day. And by the time I got to my late 20s, and I was making these recordings with Joan, um, um, I thought, I don't even know where my voice is anymore. And I remember I tried to fly to see Miss Harshaw for one.
Mm-hmm.
She was so frustrated because what's she going to say to me in 1 hour? Okay. And I left there, and I went next day, and I'm coaching with Richard Bonney, and I was trying to maintain some of the things that she'd given me. And he said, "What are you doing? Is this everything was wrong? And so the conflict of that was that I was there too soon. Okay, I would look at the chorus, and the operas that I was singing, and the chorus were all people my age, who were staring at me like, "Why are you there?" And then I look at Joan and her, and that's another generation, you see. So I didn't belong in either place. So
So it sounds like you weren't ready psychologically for all of that attention, all of that scrutiny, and it happened a little bit too early.
It's kind of the same thing that you see in some of these child actors, who are, who's that one that did Home Alone or something?
Yeah, Macaulay Culkin. Yeah.
Look what happened to him. That's tragic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Who knows what he could have developed had he not been given that kind of attention that soon. What does that young boy get to know about life and how to handle things? You see, and he's had a hard time. And you go down the line with so many people. So you have to earn what you're doing in your life, and that's time. Okay.
That's great.
In the world we're in today, we're moving too fast, and we need to slow down.
Right.
And we need to get quiet, and we need to get inside of ourselves and grow as people. The person comes first, the voice comes second. See, we put our priorities the other way around, and that's wrong.
Gotcha. Yeah, actually, one thing that I wanted to point out, Carol Farley says hello. I don't know if you can see her comment there, but she also had a career where she started quite early, I would say. Had a debut quite early in her career, and she sustained it and did very well. So I think it's interesting that it's actually wonderful to have her here, and thank you, Carol, for saying hi. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Carol. No. She probably had her feet more on the ground though than I did. Okay, you gals, I think, have a little bit more chance not to be. What's the word I want? A guy in the business can be spoiled. There aren't as many of us, you see, and so we're given opportunities that women are not given. So the woman has to work for it more in a more practical way. She needs to put her feet on the ground in a way that guys don't. And I've seen that with so many of the young male singers. They're not ready. They're just not ready. You see, and they're being given opportunities before it's their time. And that's not right. So the way to fix that is to get your shit together as a person. And you know what I'm saying?
That's real talk. That's real talk.
Who says this? Who acknowledges this? So thank you for your honesty and sharing this with us, because it's really refreshing to us. And I know you are that man. You speak, you walk the talk for sure. I know this.
Well, it's taken me my whole life to learn some of the things that I've learned, you see. And so it's important that I can hopefully pass some of this on, because I don't think this kind of information is being given to a lot of singers today. and it surprises me. Um, um, Possibly when I was teaching, because I've been given those advantages and saw the problems that I had, I was able to advise my young singers more clearly in that regard, because I spoke a lot about developing you as a person,
Right.
you know, and a lot of the teachers don't take enough time to do that. You know, they're too interested in maintaining just the voice, you know, and it's the person that comes first. See,
So actually, quick question. Let's dive a little bit deeper into that. What would you say? What advice would you give? And actually, let me step back. What are some of the core principles for you as a voice teacher? What would you say? What would you say are your core principles?
you mean technical?
Technically, and just when you're dealing with a singer, like what's your approach?
Well, the first thing you do is to find out, you know, how they're dealing with the breath, of course, you know, when they sing, you know, and technically you need to get to what I call the core in the sound, you know, and that comes from being able to go right to the edge of the vocal folds, you know, the very edge of the vocal folds is where you should be singing, you know, and singers, unfortunately, because the tongue is connected to the larynx, the tongue gets in the way of that. You know, and the other thing that it gets in the way is your jaw. So the two of the most important things that you have to learn to free when you sing are the tongue, the root, especially the root of the tongue, which is connected to the larynx, you know, and releasing the jaw. And that doesn't mean opening your mouth or dropping your jaw. That means unhinging your jaw, which is an entirely different feeling. And a lot of teachers don't know how to teach that. You know, they just say drop your jaw. No, that's not what you do. You know, you unhinge the jaw. And you can even do that with your mouth closed. You see. So
Interesting. Okay.
yeah.
So that's typically where you start with releasing tension, basically.
Yeah. You have to, you know, make them aware how to get into the body, because what happens is you're so anxious to make the right sound and you start working from the neck up, and you're working too hard up here. You see, what you have to do is the opposite. The Italians have that wonderful thing that they say, which they call appoggiare di petto, you know, and that's extremely important in singing, you know, to release the sound within the chest cavity, you know, and they talk about that, the Italians, and they're absolutely right, you know, and it takes time to learn how to coordinate that, you know. The other thing you have to do is to release the you know, when you're singing, you get so anxious that you start getting very tense in the body, and it's very important that you learn how to release that. You know, it's in other words, it becomes a voluntary effort when you're singing incorrectly. It's voluntary, and what you have to get in touch with is what they call the involuntary process. You know, and that's just learning how to get these voluntary areas out of your way. And there are many different technical approaches that help do this, but you need to find the right teachers who will help you find that. You know.
Excellent. Thank you. We have a comment from my good friend Jeremiah, who's a voice teacher himself, fantastic
Oh my
teacher,
goodness.
and he loves what you're saying, what you're sharing.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you, Jeremiah. Yeah, yeah. It's taken me a long time to learn these things, I'll tell you. Yeah.
Also, do you feel
It's a
that
journey.
you can share some ways to approach this? Maybe exercises that you feel free to share, or
Well, you know, there, as I said, there are so many different approaches that are okay.
mm-hmm.
Um, the main thing is to release those two areas that I mentioned. Those are the two dangerous places: the root of the tongue and the jaw. You know, you know, and that may sound like an easy thing to release those areas, and it's not, because the demands that are made on you in the music get you so tense, the first thing that happens is you start grabbing, you know, as I said, the root of the tongue.
So true. So true.
Yeah, yeah. And it takes a long time to learn to release that, and to get into the body correctly, And again, if singers move too fast, your voice doesn't really develop until you reach at least into your 30s. And with many voices, it takes the 40s, especially the big voices, So when you're pushed up there before that and have to do all this difficult repertoire, you're really doing a tremendous disservice to your talent by doing this, you see. So you have to have the maturity to know how to say no and have the right people around you guiding you to say, don't go there, don't do that. And a lot of us don't have those kind of people around us. We need people like that, to help others, So I would say that's an important thing to do in your life, is to find people that are wise and who tell the truth, and you better find people like that around you to help guide you. Yeah.
I have another question. Yeah, do you want to read that? That came in a little earlier. I didn't get to it yet. So let's. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well,
Is there many people in that situation?
Yeah, there are. I mean, it depends on what you consider to be a success. Is having a great career being a success, or is having a great singing technique and singing beautifully and knowing who you are in your life? Which is the most important? Big career or being a complete person who loves what they do, and that may take your whole life to learn how to do that. If you love it enough, you'll do it. You'll take the time, because it's never too late, to develop who you are. And if you develop who you are, the voice comes along for the ride.
Amen. You've said that a few times. I'm sensing a little bit of a theme here.
It's true. It's absolutely true.
Awesome. Another question. Jeremiah asked to hear your thoughts about the diaphragm.
Well, I mean, we're talking about the muscles that are it's a thin muscle down in that area. It helps to release the tension in your upper body. By doing the appoggiata di petto, you get inside the chest cavity, and that allows you to access the diaphragm. But until you know how to get down into the body that way, you're not going to access the diaphragm correctly. Now, you can tell a student all day long, sing from the diaphragm, sing from the diaphragm, sing, and they have no idea what you're talking about. Okay. So you have to learn how to get them to release the tensions that are up here, and using various ideas, like especially the appoggiata di petto, which I think is excellent. This will help you to achieve getting the support from the diaphragm. When you sing. But don't just talk about the diaphragm to the students. Say, sing from the diaphragm. They have no idea what you're talking about. Release all the tensions that are up here and learn how to get down into the chest cavity, which is what the Italians talk about. And in doing that, you are accessing the ability then to get into the diaphragmatic area. I think it's even lower than that, quite frankly. I learned that from the women. I would watch the women sing, and the women all sang. I'm sorry, I'm going to be blunt here. They sang from their butt when they sang, especially the top. And men are not good at that. We tend to put all the emphasis up here, only up here, you see. And women don't do that, because especially getting into the upper register, they have to get down into their hind ends. Okay, I learned that from singing with Marilyn Horne. And Marilyn Horne used to talk about that. I'd be talking to Marilyn, I always called her. Everybody called her Jackie. I couldn't do that. I always called her Marilyn. But she would say, "You get down in between your cheeks," she said, and I went, "Okay." And she said, "They talk about a quarter, putting a quarter in there." She says, "No, it's a dime." She used to say, "Yeah, you know," and but but they're right. You see, they're right. This is why how consistently she sang. You could see that way as she sang. She didn't move because she was all connected down in her dime place. Okay, yeah. It's a very low feeling. So just the appoggiata, in other words, is only a start. Then you have to learn to get all the way down into the bottom part of your body that way. Yeah.
Mhm.
And when you do that, you become very still. When you see a great singer sing, they don't move. They don't have to, even when the music is difficult. You see, you know.
Tato, you mentioned that you've seen Callas sing.
I what?
You mentioned to me before that you've seen Maria Callas sing and how she really did not move a bit. Just
Callas was an amazing singer. A lot of people didn't like the voice because it was such a unique sound, but musically, she was probably musically the greatest singer we've ever had. I had a feeling when I watched Callas that if she wanted to, she could have gone down and conducted the orchestra in the operas that she was singing. That's how well she knew the opera. How many singers can you say that about? They aren't even aware of the orchestra.
yeah.
Loving it. So it was again, we're talking musicality. That's what made her stand out, was her musicality. She was so far above most of the other singers of her time because she was so true to the music, you know, um, um, and that's what set her apart, you know. Um, yeah,
Excellent. Thank you.
Jeremiah said the right thing. He said Callas was genius. She was. You didn't have to like the voice, but look what she did with it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
fact in her personal life that she had, had to lose all that weight and become. I think they said that she tried to imitate, wanted to look like Audrey Hepburn, and that's what she was out to do. I don't think that was the right thing to do. And it cost her. And then in her personal life, of course, she had so many bad relationships. There was a tragedy. But if you get down to what made her great, you look at what she achieved musically as a singer, and
Yeah.
there's no one else that comes to that level in our time. That's why she's still alive. That's why we still talk about her. See?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, Tasso, thank you. What about, I know you've spent quite a bit of, 10 years that you sang with Joan Sutherland?
Yeah, well, my whole career, you see, was from early 20s to early 30s. As I said, by my early 30s, I was so disillusioned, you know, and because I knew I didn't have the ingredients to be a complete singer, and I knew that had nothing to do with my voice, everything to do with what I still liked as a man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And one time I was in London, I was doing something with Joan, and I was talking to Elizabeth, and she, she was the head of the voice department at American University,
Mm-hmm.
and she, all this time that I would be singing, I was so unhappy all the time, and she got so tired of this, and at one point I started complaining to her while we were talking, and she said, "I'll hire you. You're a good teacher." And I heard myself go, okay, there I am at 32, and it just came out of my mouth, and I thought, I think I'm making the right decision here. And so I went to Tony Russo, my manager, and I said, I'm gonna quit.
Do you think it was mostly because of the business itself at that time?
The business is very difficult, very difficult. It's very unfair. I'm sorry to say this, but I think the business is dirty. I really believe that. And
Yeah.
the singers are a victim of this. Actors, the same thing. Okay, the business sucks. Sorry, but it does. You know,
It's okay.
and you better be up.
Speak
You
freely.
better be up to knowing how to deal with that, or you'll be in trouble. And that's why I'm talking about this balance that we have to have,
Mm-hmm.
which had nothing to do with this, the voice, everything to do with the person. Okay, so our first responsibility is to get our shit together as people. Yeah,
Amen, brother.
Yeah.
true. You know, and
Yeah.
there's nearly enough emphasis being made on this. You know, uh, you want to you want to grow well in your life so that you can be proud of who you are when you reach, a certain age, shall we say. Uh, so that's the first priority to my mind is that we develop ourselves, and evolve in this world, you know. If you believe in the spirit, then as I do, then you also feel that you're feeding that spirit so that spirit can move on to another place after you're gone.
Yeah.
And I do believe
Thank you for that,
Thank
Tessa.
you, Joseph.
We have a couple of questions from Russ Penny.
that. Oh,
He
right.
wants to. He said I earlier. I think I posted that. Hopefully, I shared it.
No, I
But
didn't.
he wants. I didn't show it
Yeah.
yet. Sorry about that. Okay. Yeah. So Russ wants to know two things. He wants to hear the story of the Huguenot, and he also wants to know if you still
Oh,
use the Buckingham exercises and the
oh
like.
my God. Oh my God.
I was trying for that earlier.
Leave it to Russ to get down to the nitty gritty like that. Yeah. Well, the recording is interesting because nobody realizes that it was Bonnie that insisted I do Raoul in Les Huguenots, and London Records didn't want me. They wanted Nicolai Gedda. He was on tour. That was the time when the Met was going on tour around the country doing the operas, and he was on contract, so they couldn't get Gedda, and so they finally gave in to Bonnie. Now I had done it in concert the year before to a great success. I was in good voice. It was a huge success. Okay. I go to London to make the recording. I figured like I need to practice a little bit. I went into this room and it was very cold, London, you know, and that night I started coughing. And I thought, oh, I've done it now. And so the next day I was coughing up this green stuff, and I thought, oh my God, I'm sick. So I went to Joan. There was a gathering of the cast, like a little party. And I went to Joan. I said, Joan, I'm in trouble. I'm very sick. And I said, do you have any voice doctors uh, that you can recommend? She said, yeah, I have two. And so I went to both of them. And they were alarmed at what they saw. They said, you have a severe case of bronchitis. You should not be singing. And I said, can you write a letter in that regard? That I can show, because I don't know what else I can do. And so they did. I had two letters from those two doctors who were both alarmed at the state I was in. And I went and showed this to the people in charge in London Records. And they looked at me after reading these letters and they say, Anastasios, do you expect us to cancel $1 million recording because of you? Now, had I been mature enough, okay, as a person, I would have said, I'm sorry,
Wow.
but I can't continue like this. You have evidence here that I am a sick man. I couldn't do that. I was a kid. I was horrified when they said that. What did I say? Oh my God, no. Coughing. you know. So 3 or 4 days later, I started recording, and I had half of the voice, half of my voice, especially what they call the chest voice. I couldn't get into the chest voice. There was no strength in my body, and I kept coughing. I was sick. I had a temperature of 102, and so I used on that recording what they call a mixed voice. You blend the mezza di voce, especially as you're getting into the top. It's the only way I could get the notes out. And it was terrible because I couldn't do what I normally do. Okay. Now, that's how I went through this recording. And of course, the critics all ripped me up to shreds. Why is he on here? And doing this, and I had no way of ever telling anyone this, you see. And so that was the beginning of a real emotional damage that did, because I was supposed to go from that to do Romeo in San Francisco Opera. And I got off the plane. I managed to finish this recording by some kind of miracle. Went into California to start rehearsing the Romeo, and I had total laryngitis. I couldn't even speak, and so I went through the rehearsals, writing notes, and the stage director was a famous French baritone, and he had retired, and he was directing. And he watched this for about a week, and then he said, "You won't throw in the towel." He said, "I'm going to throw in the towel for you." And he took a towel, a linen towel from the San Francisco Opera bathroom, and we went marching up to Kurt Adler's office, and he burst in with me, and Kurt Adler said, "What are you doing here?" And he took the towel and threw it in his face, and he said, "This young man won't throw in the towel, so I'm throwing in the towel for him."
Wow.
Yeah. Now, you don't really recover from that. That leaves a kind of a mark on you finally, And what I found happening, plus I noticed the voice kept changing. It kept getting fuller, more mature. And I didn't. I was on a tour with my accompanist. I was doing recitals, and the accompanist would say, the sound that you make here and here and here. He said, "I think that's your voice," and I'd say, "Well, that's this new sound coming in." And he said, "There's a teacher that I work in his studio, which I want you to get in touch with, because I think he can help you." And that was Raymond Buckingham, who is a very controversial teacher, who did these very extraordinarily difficult exercises that nobody else around did, that he had invented. And he immediately opened the voice up. But at that point, when he gave me this other sound, I didn't know what to do with it, because I had not used it.
Yeah.
And
Would you say it's because your identity was tied up in who you had been before?
Yeah. I was known as leggero, tenore di grazie, and I could sing all the, the Rossini and all the high things, and this was a whole other voice. So not having trained with that, and the training that I had done had been for this leggero voice, I didn't quite know how to embrace that, and so it was a catch-22 situation, and I was by then had started, I'd become a professor in voice at American University, and I was teaching all these students and all, and trying to take some lessons with this man, but inside I couldn't identify with it was too new. See, and what happened as a result, the tragedy is that I lost the joy of singing, and I also lost the confidence. You know, without the joy and without the confidence, you can't sing.
That's true. That's very
And
true. Yeah, that's a
I think what what the only thing where I was so healed, shall we say, from this was the students, because all these wonderful young people that I was able to, and a lot of the private students that I had, you see, helped me forget that, you know, because I could inspire and help all these other people. And in a way, if you think about it, maybe that's even more important than my having developed my career. You know, to be able
right.
to help your fellow man that way, has been a blessing for me. You know, and I'm very, very proud of that.
Thank you, Tasso. Speak closer.
Oh my goodness.
Hear you.
Do you think that
Kofi,
it allows for the
closer
Sorry
to
about
the
that. Yeah, I just realized I was muted. Yeah, this is another question from Raymond, which I think is very apropos to what we're discussing. And I think you will probably agree that the business today is probably even worse than it was back in your day. So we'd love to get your comments on that.
It is. It is. When I was singing, it's interesting. I went to there was a fellow singer that I sang with named Diana Soviero. I don't know if you all know who she is.
Of course, yes.
And I used to sing with her, and she'd become a prominent teacher in New York. And I went, one of my students auditioned for her, and I went with them. And Diana had experienced this business that I'm talking about, and how awful it is. And I saw a different Diana than I remembered. She had been I mean, she used to be this funny gal. She was a wonderful soprano, you know, and what I saw was a very angry and disillusioned older woman teaching all these students, you know, and she's in the middle of this lesson that I'm watching with one of my students, and she looked over at me and she said, "It's not like when we were singing, Tasso. It's very different today." You know, and I just stared at her.
Yeah.
She was right. It was simpler when I was singing with her in those days. It isn't anymore, you know. And so you look out. You better be ready as a person to deal with this business, because it's mean, you know. And I feel for this. This is why I say to the singers.
I guess that's our next question. But please finish your thought.
Well, the first thing you gotta, if you have a voice to sing Wagner, then you better wait until you're at least up in your 40, at least your 40s.
40.
You know? Yeah. And again, we see so much evidence of these younger, especially the sopranos, getting up there trying to sing this difficult music way before they're ready.
Because competitions are all up to 35, maybe 40. You know, that's why.
That's another fault in the business, isn't it? You know, give the singers time to develop. You know, they don't do that. You know, they do the opposite. Oh, Jose, how are you, Jose? He worked with me as a tenor, and then he became a baritone. He said, "I don't have. I become baritone now, Tasso, because I don't have to worry about anything above a G." And I went, "Yeah." And he's done beautifully as a baritone. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, we
Well,
have a comment from. Yeah, we have a couple more actually. Well, there's a comment from Joanna. I'll read it, and I'll put it on the screen. She says she loves how you view the singer holistically, and it speaks about a Greek Orthodox upbringing. You know,
True. That helps. Yeah. Well, this is what I'm saying. Prayer can help. Your background can help you. meditation. There are many other methods that you can use to develop, what I'm calling your spirit, because that's the most important part of us. We don't realize that because we live in a three-dimensional world, and the spirit is in a different place. So unless we know how to seek that, you see, we will lose out.
Amen to that. There's another comment on your thoughts about the joy and the confidence you lost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but he's absolutely right. It's interesting how when I was singing, as a teacher, and I would get them to do these programs, I was so unhappy because of what had happened, because that joy was gone, you know. And the person that would suffer the most from that was Elizabeth, because I'd be singing with her, and she'd look up at me and she'd say, "Are we going to enjoy anything tonight when we're singing?" You know, and I didn't know what to say to her. The damage had been done. So you must retain that joy and that confidence, you know, or you're going to be lost. And
Yeah.
it's hard to do because of the difficulties that we face in the world and many of the world there. Thank you, Emma. Yeah, I mean, this is stuff that I've been told is important to say, but I've never had an opportunity to do it. You know, um, and it's probably true. Not enough people are saying the kind of things that I'm saying.
Yes.
You know, and as a result, there's a lot of damage being done to these young singers. You know, and it makes me sad. Because it shouldn't be. There should be people out there telling the truth, and we don't have enough people who have the guts to do that.
Sadly, yeah. But we're
Yeah.
thankful to have people like you speaking the truth and saying the things that just
Well, I
that
think
aren't tickling people's ears. Because I think we get so much in that mode where people think, oh, singers are sensitive, so you have to tell them you have to be gentle with what you tell them, and maybe there's an element of truth to that, but you can't do that at the expense of being
no,
honest
no, no,
and
no, no, no,
real with people,
no.
right?
It's the opposite of that. You have to become strong. You have to
It's
become
the singer's responsibility to toughen up to some degree, right?
You've got to be strong, and that takes time, and you can't rush it. You know, and there are methods to do that, but you've got to find that balance. In that what I'm calling the body, the mind, and the spirit. And that takes sometimes your entire life to learn how to do that. You know.
Amen.
Yeah.
Well, I think I particularly liked what you said about what your definition of success is. Is the definition of success to become a great singer, or is it to have the financial and social proof of success, which is the money, the accolades, the name recognition, etc. If that's success to you, then you're very much limiting, I think, what you can enjoy from this art form.
What you're denying by doing that is your spirit. That has
Yeah.
nothing whatsoever, anything to do with your spirit. It's like you've avoided the spirit. It doesn't even there. It is not even there. So it's like you're stepping on your own spirit by doing that. Finding this success. In this three-dimensional world that we live in, and there's a lot more to life than that. But it's got to come from going to another place, and that's what I think is where the spirit is. Oh,
We have another question. What do you see in opera's future?
well, because of the business and the way it's become, um, um, that's a difficult question to answer. I don't think we're in a good place. It's not just the pandemic that's going on now, which has been devastating, of course, for the business. Um, um, I think too much emphasis has been put on the money, and the people that have suffered the most from that have been the singers. You see, So do I think that opera is continuing in a good way? No, I don't. I don't. Uh, I think we've passed the best years that we've had, what they call the golden era, which was the 40s, 50s, even the 60s, maybe into the 70s. We're not there anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, but
We don't have the singers that we had in those days because for some reason things were more practical in those days. I think singers took more time to develop who they were.
But also, do you think that there are no singers or they are not given the spotlight? I think that's an important question.
You mean the opportunities?
Yes, to be seen by others.
Well, but again, you see, the business doesn't allow for that. They just want to make some big bucks,
Hmm.
and so they'll take advantage of that. The singer becomes like a piece of meat. You know what I mean? We'll use that meat until we don't want it anymore, and then we'll throw it out.
yeah, so this is the next question. Is there a financial incentive to lie? I guess maybe lie to singers or be dishonest about things in this industry. Is this something you've seen?
You mean in terms of age, or I'm not sure what you're.
Sorry, I think that the question probably popped up right when you were talking about um, just when teachers are teaching students and maybe they're not being honest about what the realistic expectations can be, perhaps, and if there is there a financial element to that. Just maybe your thoughts about how money perhaps drives people's behaviors in this business.
It's a shame that we're even talking about this. That we would have to learn how to lie to get ahead. What does that tell you? There's something wrong with that, isn't it? You know,
Oh,
so
absolutely, yeah, agreed.
the business is in the wrong place, and the people that suffer are the singers. You know, very often they just become the victim of this business. You know, and that's
Right.
wrong. Isn't that wrong? We haven't changed that, have we?
Absolutely. Yeah, just to clarify, he says it's in regards to telling students what realistic expectations can be of a career in this business.
Hmm. Right.
Yeah, so it sounds like you would agree that there is a financial incentive to for some people to be dishonest in that regard.
I don't know how to answer that. It's a shame that they have to even go through that, is what I'm saying. That's wrong.
Oh yeah,
You know?
for sure.
So is it okay then to lie? Up to you.
Yeah.
You know, if that's
Yeah.
the way you want to live your life, by telling lies to get through life, there's something wrong with that, isn't it? So, you know, things have to change, but I don't know that they will. You
Thank
know,
you, Nelson.
that's
Yeah.
that is part of what we're talking about here. Is have things gotten better? No, they've gotten worse.
Mhm.
Is there proof that things are going to get better? No. So again, that comes back to you better develop who you are as a person and become a complete person in your life. You know, that's your first priority. You know, and the business will fall into place somehow because of that. But don't put the business
Right.
first, you know, or you'll be in trouble.
Thank you
Understood.
so much.
Another question. Jeremiah asked. Here we go. Says you speak about having a thick middle voice. What were your thoughts about singers like John Vickers? How did you learn to even out the middle to access the higher registers?
That's a very good question. Well, the main thing is the middle voice cannot be what I call muscular. Muscular means you're adding, instead of saying on the edge of the vocal folds, on the edge, you move back on the chords and it becomes muscle because of the chords. The only place that the chords are healthy is right on the edge. It's like soft bone. Okay. If you move farther back to make a thicker sound, you work on muscle. And when you work on muscle, you then start involving the root of the tongue as well. And that's the first sign that you're going to fail. You know, so the middle voice has to thin out. In other words, you have to find means to. I'm not saying take the color out of the sound, but don't create the color by muscling the sound. You know, John Vickers naturally had a huge middle voice. I don't think he was muscling that. You know, because listen to John Vickers. Has anybody heard John Vickers sing the Messiah? It's one of the best recordings ever made of the Messiah, the tenor artist. He sang leader beautifully. So was he abusing that big middle voice that he had by singing muscularly? No, I don't hear that. That was a natural part of his voice. What he did, though, that was so amazing, was that he knew how to bring that down and control it and be able to sing the leader. And listen to his recording of the Messiah. It's extraordinary, you know. And find another, you know, dramatic tenor who can do what he did on that recording. You won't find it. That's what made him stand out.
Excellent.
And they used to complain about that when he would sing his leader, because he would bring the voice down in these concerts, you know, these performances of the Wagner, you know, and they criticized him for it. The fact that he could bring that big voice, because you could still hear him clearly, you know, what he was showing was musicality and control of the dynamics, you know, instead of getting up there and hollering all night long. And they complained about that. That's the critics for you.
Yeah, see, I just put up another comment by Jeremiah. He agrees 100% that
Well,
it
he
was a
knows
big
that
voice, but he knew how to,
it
you
is.
know,
It's
bring it
amazing.
down, as you said.
Yep, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
another question from Bill Heron.
Oh
It
my
says, "Love you,
God.
Tasso." I'm gonna put that
Hey, Bill.
up.
Oh my God. How are you, Bill? I miss you. It's been too long. Goodness. For the reasons that I said earlier, that people are not being trained to get into their bodies correctly. And the old singers knew what their bodies were doing. And the singers today don't know what their bodies are doing. Therefore, they don't sing the Verdi because they can't. Their bodies won't allow it. See, they have not trained correctly. You see, and so you have very often you have these lyric voices up there trying to sing this Verdi, and they shouldn't be up there. You know, um, um, yeah, I agree with you on that. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was, and you know what was interesting about Vickers is evidently he was a very tough guy. You know, he was like a truck driver kind of a guy. You know, and so that's what they talked about. Rather than talking about the amazing career that he had and the things that he could do with his voice, they talked about the fact that he was difficult. Didn't they say that about Callas?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, hey,
I'm sensing a theme.
yeah,
Well, she wanted perfection not just from herself, but from others.
She yes, and so did Vickers, and that made him. You know, he expected everybody to be on top of what they were doing, and not cheating. You know, that made him temperamental. You know, that he wanted to be excellent and expected everyone around him to be excellent, and that's being temperamental. They said that about Callas as well. You know,
Yeah.
it's. But see, now we're getting back to the business again, aren't we?
Yeah, yes, indeed. I mean, it's the
Yeah.
unifying theme and thread, I think, throughout
Yeah.
this discussion, and it's the reality we're all facing, right?
Yeah. You're a very smart man, Jeremiah.
He's a wonderful singer himself, actually.
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, Sasha,
Actually,
you have another question?
I think we have another couple comments I want to share with you, just because. Um,
Oh my
Here we
goodness.
go. Russ says, "Please know we are also grateful to have had you as our teacher."
Oh, thank you, Russ. Love you. How you doing? Yeah, call me sometime. Let me know how you're doing.
We have another from DeAndre. He says, "Greetings
Oh
from
my goodness.
California."
My goodness. Thank you. My goodness.
Wonderful. I didn't know you knew Leandro too. Wow.
I'm amazed by all of this.
Yeah,
You
it's a
know,
great discussion. Let's see,
thanks
what
to
else did
you,
I miss?
you guys that aren't even here today. That's so important what the two of you are doing. You know, um, you know, and many of the other singers need to try to get involved either online or whatever to continue working. Um, because this is so difficult right now for all of us. But don't quit. You know,
Thank you, Tess.
yeah. Get online. Do some of the things that you see Kofi and Visa doing. Yeah, that's
Thank
really
you.
important. You know, and I wish you well with your program. I hope it continues and keeps becoming a success for you. You're
Thank you so much, Tess.
very
Oh, thank you.
important. Very important what you're doing. Yeah.
We really appreciate your time and the support and the wisdom that you imparted on us today. I certainly am grateful for having had you as my teacher in my life, and listening to your stories that you graciously shared with us today.
Thank you, Visa.
Thank you, Tasa, from the bottom of my heart and DictionBuddy. We also would like to congratulate you and wish you a wonderful birthday.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Tomorrow, I'm the big 8-0.
Wow! Happy birthday to you, Tasso.
Thank
What an
you, Rita.
incredible life.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
so much. Thank you.
And then Jenny McGinnis has a couple of things to say. Just say, Tasso is an
Oh,
amazing
my
teacher, and I
goodness.
hope I'm doing a good job passing his lessons on
Oh,
to my
Jenny,
students. You
Jenny.
gotta.
You got a legacy, Tasso.
Yes, you do.
Jenny.
Yes, you
Talk,
do.
talk,
And
talk about a voice. You should hear Jenny. It was very interesting because she was in another university. I won't mention which, and getting her degree, and she could sing Wagner, even though she was that young. And because I knew technique, I was able to guide her, and that it wasn't hurting her. She wasn't getting up and singing the entire role. In other words, and so she would she would get up and sing these arias, and because they didn't know who she was, the auditorium would be like empty, and I would think, oh my God, too bad people can't hear this. It was just an amazing in this wonderful young lady. I don't know if any of you know who Jenny is, but she's a great gal.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I've never met her, but I look forward to one day.
Oh, she's a terrific gal.
And Elizabeth also wrote a comment, which I think is a wonderful ending to our program. Kofi, would you please read it?
Way to go. This is a wonderful talk, Tasso. Young singers will surely benefit from what you're saying. You said so many important things, and you have put
Thank
us
you,
all in touch
sweetheart.
with each other and ourselves. Thank
Yeah,
you,
thank
to
you,
Vita.
Lisa. Thank you,
Yeah.
sweetheart.
And you have
Yeah.
a bunch of happy birthdays. I have to show those. You have a bunch of happy birthdays, so let's do that. You have one from Delia.
Delia.
Oh, Delia,
Delia.
how you doing, Delia? Oh
You
my
have one
goodness.
from Jeremiah,
Oh my goodness. Thank
and
you.
none from Jenny. You have one from Joanna, looks like, in Greek. So,
Oh, oh my goodness.
so lots of
Really
love to
sweet.
Tasso.
Thank you, Johan.
One from Emma, one from Heather,
Oh,
one from Raymond,
thank you, Heather.
and Kevin.
Thank you. Uh,
Yeah, so lots of love and appreciation for everything you've done to share your knowledge and your experience and
uh,
your wisdom. And
thank you.
this will be online for people to see, in perpetuity. Um, And we have another person who've not heard from yet, John Turner.
John,
John, my goodness. I hope you're well, John. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, with that, we wanted to say once more, Tasso, thank you so much for your time. Thank you to the audience and everyone who's submitted questions and kind comments and compliments. This is a business and an art form that lives through tradition, and to be able to tap into Tasso's rich experience and history as a teacher, as a performer, working with and singing along with some of the greats who we all admire, who I personally have, I found inspiration to become an opera singer from. It's a huge, huge privilege. So thank you so much for your time, and we hope to see you very soon. Happy birthday.
happy
And
birthday,
enjoy
Tasso.
the rest of your day, Tassa.
Thank you, guys.
I love you.
All right. All right.
You're very welcome. Lots of love to you, man.
Love and
Take
peace.
care.
Love you.
Bye-bye.